Alright, guys, welcome to the fifth episode of the Intersect Project podcast. Today's episode will cover Chuck versus the Sizzling Shrimp. Now, this is a good episode. I think this is my second favorite episode in season one, and I'll explain my favorite episode and why it's my favorite episode later in season one. But this is my second favorite. It reveals a lot about characters in the series. It's really a character building episode, is what I would characterize it as. It really is a huge character building episode for not only Team Bartowski, but people outside of Team Bartowski. So, there's that. But, first off, before I start delving into the episode, I want to go over a few things. First off, I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening, sharing. Keep doing that. Keep sharing it with everybody. Uh, Still trying to look around for places that could review the podcast, maybe get it out there a little bit further. Because, I mean, let's face it, I don't want to just get it out so the podcast becomes more popular. Well, I do want that to happen, but the farther the podcast reaches, the more likely it could come across someone who has never watched Chuck before. This could be their starting. This could be their starting line. This podcast could be a starting line for them to watch Chuck and get addicted, like everybody should, because it's a fantastic show. So that's why I really want this whole podcast to be shared. So keep sharing, leave reviews, follow me on Twitter and on the tweets at Chuck Rewatch 33, capital C. And next, I want to talk about just very shortly, because this is the Intersect Project podcast, not the shameful promoting podcast. But that's what I'm gonna do. Anyway, our entertainment company, our media company that me and the Bearded Bandit started together, might be putting out a fantasy football podcast later on in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that, especially if you're into football and or fantasy football. So keep an eye out for that. And then, like I said in the last episode, we are working together with a couple other people we know to bring you Nerd News Weekly, which is like a news show like you would watch online, like a 10-minute news show each week about all news nerd stuff. Those articles you have to scour the internet for. We're going to find them, we're going to summarize them, we're going to present them to you in video news form. I feel like that's the best way to reach people, so that's what we're going to do for you guys. So that keep an eye out for that, but that will probably be around December. There's a lot of planning going on into a show like that, so that might be around December before that gets up and going. But I will make sure you guys know about it. And thus ends the shameful plugs that I have for myself. So now we can delve directly into Chuck versus the Sizzling Shrimp. Alright, Chuck versus the Sizzling Shrimp. What an episode. Like I said earlier, it's a lot about character development. We learn a lot about Chuck. We learn a lot about Ellie in this episode. And Morgan too. So it's a pretty good episode if you like the character development. It's just a good episode in general. I think I said earlier, this was the introduction was recorded a couple days earlier prior to this. So I said that this was my second favorite episode of the season. I think I misspoke. I think this is my favorite episode of the season, but there's another moment in an episode that's my favorite moment of the season. And that'll come in a later episode, and I'll explain. You'll find out which moment that is when we get to that episode. But anyway, we let's begin with let's go back to another topic that we discussed last episode a little bit, and that's Chuck trying to juggle his spy life with his friends. the spy world with his friends and family. I mean, he started to learn a little bit about it last episode with Sarah lying about stuff, but now he's full on involved in this. He has to deal with going out on a mission and lying about where he is. He's spending all his time with Sarah. I'm using air quotes because it's really a spy mission, but his friends and family think it's a date with Sarah. So it's it's crazy because Chuck is like the last person who wants to lie to his family, but he's the one person who has to lie to his family right now because of how important he is. The Intersect is literally the most important thing in the country at that moment. It's so important that they took a regular guy out of a buy more and they made him put him on spy missions. So yeah, it's really important. So what does Chuck do? He has to lie. He has to lie to his family and friends. And it is eating him alive. It is not going over well for him. He is not happy with it at all because that's not it. It's not him. It's just not what he likes. It's not at all what he wants to do. That's what I'm trying to get at. Alright, so now we can dive into the sales competition at the Buy More because I want to save Morgan, Chuck, and Sarah's sizzling shrimp dinner for a little bit later. It's more of a Morgan, Chuck, Sarah intertwining, I guess, just like how they gel together. But anyway, the sales competition. Now, for you newbies, throughout the seasons at the Buy More, there will be certain things that go on that make you laugh hysterically. This is one of them because this sales competition is just absolutely hilarious, especially what happens at the end when we find out, hey, it all meant nothing. But Morgan scrounging around to make sure he did not get fired by watching him try and sell things terribly was just absolutely hilarious. Just absolutely hilarious. So we learn a lot about Morgan through this episode. We learn that he is a terrible salesman, which kind of seemed obvious, but we learn for sure he is a terrible salesman, as judging by the fact that he cannot, he cannot sell anything. He cannot sell anything. So what does Morgan do? He takes the prize to heart. Tries really hard not to be in last place, even though he's in last place on the whole episode. So there's that. And what did Jeff and Lester do? What they usually do. Try and ruin Morgan's day. Because, hey, it's Jeff and Lester. So they try and use the wounded raccoon on them. And that is a fantastic name for the what they do. The wounded raccoon. Just listening to that makes me laugh because I know what it consists of, and it's just so hilarious. Going up while Morgan's trying to make a sale, and he's not even making a sale at that point. He's got a girl's number because he was willing to give up a sale so she could buy her sick nephew something, that electronic device, cheaper over at the Large Mart. That's fantastic of Morgan. It's so nice of him. And what did Jeff and Lester do? They come in and use the wounded raccoon, put him down, put Morgan down 6 feet under the ground, take him out, basically just humiliate him in front of the woman, and then she asks for a number back because at that point she should. And then Jeff and Lester were like, well, we never seen it work, but we've never tried it before. Now we know it doesn't work. So that's what I like, is that Jeff and Lester are absolutely crazy, but it's hilarious. They're insane. It's funny. And for all you newbies, Jeff and Lester's antics throughout the show become very, very great. Very, very funny. They don't really subside, I guess, is what you say. What is what I would say. Never really stop. So then, obviously, after Morgan and Ellie have their heart to heart, which I will go into more when I cover the topic of Mother's Day. After their heart to heart, Ellie comes in, spends a bunch of money on stuff, and then says Morgan helped her, so Morgan second place in the sales competition, so he's no longer fired. And then he realizes that Big Mike was lying the whole time, and that's the Big Mike we all know and love, trying to get more people to do work while he can sleep and maybe eat some Subway sandwiches. Thank you, Subway, for helping bring back our show. And if you want to sponsor this podcast, I'd be willing to let you sponsor this podcast. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyway, Big Mike is a big force at the Buy More. We'll put it that way. He's for a while he's the main. Him and Chuck are the main guys at the Buy More. Chuck kind of leads the group, and Mike is the boss of the group. So basically, that's what it comes down to. Is it's a hierarchy system, but Big Mike's in control of everybody, but everybody looks up to Chuck, really. So Chuck has always been a born leader. Not really a born leader, but at the Buy More, he became a leader. So that covers the sales competition. So let's go to... Actually, one thing I want to cover is the stakeout music. You newbies will learn as the series goes on that Chuck is really good at stakeout music. We all the Chucksters know this, but he's really good at stakeout music. Like, fantastic. And this is probably one of my favorite stakeout music picks because Private Eyes by Hall & Oates is a fantastic song. I'm 20 years old, and I think Hall & Oates, I think Hall & Oates is a fantastic band. So, if that tells you anything. But I have eclectic music tastes too, so there is that. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to mention. Is that I liked the song Private Eyes, and it was funny. Alright, so let's go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do the hit of the day before we go on to Mother's Day, because like I said, Mother's Day is a pretty big topic. So, hit of the day, hit of the episode. If you're new to the podcast, I suggest you go back and listen to the other podcasts, but I think in episode 3 I started hit of the episode competition to see who in my opinion had the greatest bad guy hit in this episode, who punched a bad guy or hit a bad guy the best. And at the end of the season, we'll announce the winner of the season. And then at the end of the podcast, not the end of the podcast, but the end of Chuck, when we get to the final episode of Chuck, we'll have a who totally won hit of the who won hit of the series. Or not. Well, yeah, that actually would be pretty cool. Like a tournament of all the hits of the episodes to see who wins face to face. That'd be cool. But we're gonna announce whoever won hit of the episode winner for all 5 seasons. Who won overall. But anyway, back to this episode's hit of the episode. I choose later on in the episode when they're rescuing Ming Lee's brother, or when Chuck is rescuing all of them from the freezer, we get a fight, and they're all fighting, and they're all whooping them bad guys except for Chuck and Ming Lee's brother, who are hiding. And then at one point, Casey kicks a giant steel bucket, bam, underneath the table into a bad guy's face. Bam, that's your hit of the episode. John Casey. Bam, steel box into the guy's face. Bad guy down for the count. So John Casey has won Chuck versus the Sizzling Shrimps episode, hit of the episode. And if you're keeping track at home, John Casey 2, Sarah Walker 1. We'll find out next week who is the winner of hit of the episode. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Sarah Walker and we'll have a tie. Maybe it'll be Chuck for some reason. Or maybe it'll be John Casey and he will take a lead of 3-1. We'll find out next week on hit of the episode. Da-da-da-da. I think I want to try and put music there at some point because I just got to find the right music for it and something that's royalty free too. So there's that. Anyway, so that's it of the episode. Now we're going to delve into Mother's Day. Now, Mother's Day is not your typical Mother's Day. It's not what Chuck and Ellie celebrate on Mother's Day is not the Mother's Day you celebrate. Maybe. Actually, you might. I don't know your family situation. So, you might celebrate this way. You might probably don't, though. So, Mother's Day between Ellie and Chuck is the day they celebrate where they learn to depend on each other. Where they learn to depend on each other because their mother left them when they were young. And like Ellie said, their father wasn't really there while he was there. So Mother's Day is kind of like a celebration of them making it because of each other. They made it because of the support they give each other. So that's nice. But what we learn is that because of this, you start to learn because of Mother's Day why Ellie does some of the things she does. Now, a lot of people who watch the show, Chuck, don't really think Ellie's character is all that good because she whines all the time. She beats a dead horse with a stick with all her rhetoric, but she really means it in the best way possible. I liked the character of Ellie as a sister, and I'll tell you why. Not only does she do everything she does to protect Chuck, she does it because she's been doing it since she was like 15. Before that, since she was like 12. She has been taking care of Chuck since she was like 12. So literally she wants the best for him. It's just been, since they were young, it's been them two together forever. There's been, their mother left them when they were young, and then she said her father was never really there while he was there. So, but we'll learn more about them way later on in the shows. We'll learn about them later on. So, anyway, so she is literally just trying to take care of Chuck the best that she can. And it's just, like I said, it's been them two since the beginning. And she wants what's best for him because she's always wanted what's best for him. She's taken care of him since he was like 9. So, it may seem like she's whining about what he does. But, you gotta know, she has no idea he's a spy. She has no idea what's going on. And they have celebrated Mother's Day for years. And he missed Mother's Day. It's like a big thing. It's like every year for like 20-something years, you gather with your family. You gather with your family on Christmas. Every day, every Christmas since you were born. And that's all you know. And then for one day, you decide, hey, I'm just going to skip. Obviously, Chuck didn't just decide to skip, but to Ellie, basically, he decided to skip because she doesn't know what he was actually doing. But anyway, he skips. So your family's going to be a little upset, obviously. Your family's going to be pretty upset, obviously, because you just blew him off. You didn't even tell him where you were going. So, and obviously, Chuck wants to tell her, but he can't. But to her, to be fair, at the end of the episode, she does kind of concede Mother's Day and go, "Hey, I mean, you've got a new girl. I can't be in your life forever, but you've got Sarah now." And she kind of accepts that sometimes he's just not going to be there when Ellie wants him to be there. But like later on in the seasons, it's the same kind of rhetoric that she spews, and it's fair because she literally it's been them two forever, and she just she wants I try to find the right words to express this, but she wants not just what's best for Chuck, but she wants Chuck to be there. She wants to be there for Chuck when all the time because she's always been there for him. So I don't know. That's kind of Mother's Day. That's the Mother's Day topic, and that's how I feel about Ellie's character. So, I mean, if you feel a different way, I mean that's fair. Everybody has their favorites and their least favorites. I'm not saying Ellie's my favorite character, but she's not definitely my least favorite character. So there's that. All right. So for the last topic of the episode, I'm going to talk about the Morgan, Chuck, and Sarah Sizzling shrimp date. There's a lot. This date is pretty revealing on Sarah's character, just because. Oh, sorry. I gotta go back to the Mother's Day episode, the Mother's Day topic, because I forgot to mention Morgan and Ellie. Sorry, I will come back to the sizzling shrimp date. Anyway, now to Morgan and Ellie. We learn a lot. We've learned over the first few episodes that Ellie does not like Morgan because Morgan is in love with Ellie. But this episode, we see Ellie and Morgan starting to work together, and it's a really good bond because Ellie's his sister and Morgan's his best friend. They've both been close with Chuck since they were kids, so it's only fair that they should get along at some point. So it was nice to see them working together finally after the first 4 episodes of Ellie shunning him. So there is that, and that relationship does evolve over this show, and it's nice. It's a nice relationship. So back to the sizzling shrimp date. This is where we learn a lot about Sarah's character because she is learning about Chuck and Morgan, and she's starting to realize, hey, I might be enjoying the company of these people when I usually wouldn't. And you can see it on her face when she's smiling at all these jokes, Morgan's addiction to fireworks, and sizzling shrimp, their discussions. You can see on Sarah's face when she's smiling. It's not a fake it's not a fake cover smile. That's a real smile. Like, hey, I'm actually enjoying myself with these two goofballs. Like, and she's not second guessing it yet, but you'll see where she starts second guessing stuff. But you can definitely see where she starts not talking about, but you can definitely see where she's starting to realize that, hey, I am actually enjoying the company of these two goofballs. Like I said earlier, it's not just me trying to act like I'm happy with what I'm doing because of the cover, but I'm actually enjoying what's going on. I'm actually enjoying this date type thing. So, guys, that does it for this episode of the Intersect Project. You have just heard Chuck versus the Sizzling Shrimp, my favorite episode of season 1. If you have a different opinion on anything I said, feel free to comment on the podcast, review it, share it. You can also send your opinions on what I said in the show to my Twitter account at ChuckRewatch33, capital C in Chuck. Feel free to do that. Also, go check out Shookaholics, NerfHerder.com, where you can get all your source of Chuckahole. And that's about it for this week. I also go follow my company that I started with the Bearded Bandit, who will be on an episode at some point. It's at NerfHerder HQ, capital N, capital H, and capital HQ, where we do all sorts of nerd news. And like I said earlier, we have some pretty big things coming up. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast, and please share it if you can, because I want to get this big. I want to make it huge. I'd like to spread out this podcast, like I said, not only because it encourages me to do bigger and better things with the podcast, but it also shows more people in the world Chuck, and that's what we really want, is more people to be shown Chuck, so we can get that Chuck movie. So share it with everybody you know. Tell them, listen to the Intersect Project podcast and watch Chuck all at the same time. Thank you guys, and I will see you next week.